well, here goes nothing. Jey Uso in the main event scene.
You are saying this.
There, I said it, Michael Sidgwick. Look, I love Jey Uso. We were all there in Philadelphia, yeeting along with everyone else before he had that god-awful match with his brother. And I will say, I think it was a really exciting call to have him win the Royal Rumble. Because as I've said on numerous occasions now, for the next 5-10 years, you'll probably go into the match saying it's probably one of these 3, 4, 5 people. But at the end of the day, Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble in 2025. So anyone could win it. But I think judging it across the whole year now, I think it's the right time to say maybe it's best to go back to just tagging with your brother. Look, I was lucky enough to be there when they main evented WrestleMania. They are a great tag team. And I appreciate trying someone new. Always want to do that rather than just repetitively, doing the same thing with the same wrestlers all the time. But and this, yes, is maybe slightly more of a bubble online than it is in terms of people in attendance. People still love yeeting along and running it back and all that sort of thing. But I think 2026 needs to be, that spot needs to be given to someone else, in my opinion, because, look, like I said, it was an exciting change of direction, something new. None of us went into the Royal Rumble saying that Jey Uso was going to win it and he was going to have one of the big world title matches at WrestleMania. And look, he beat Gunther in a very controversial way in terms of, I don't think the win necessarily was controversial, just the way they went about it. That kind of started things off on not a great route as well, because there was elements of like excitement, then completely undercut by the fact that, I mean, if you're making Edge's spear look good, what are you doing? Come on. It just hasn't worked. They've tried on several occasions. They've tried, having him go in various different stories with this world championship. And look, he seems like a great guy, but sometimes these things just don't take. And I know they're trying in a new direction as we record this right now, where perhaps he could be turning heel or something like that. But at the end of the day, look, you look across not only the current main roster, but people coming up through NXT, people who could be brought in from other companies. It's a waste of a spot, in my opinion, to keep pushing Jey Uso down people's throats. He can still do that. He can still obviously sell boatloads of merch. Here we go. How about we give him his own show instead? Sunday Night Yeet. Out. Get out.
I mean, all being well, there is a chance that this might have happened, or at least be in the process of happening by the time this video goes out. But can we please, Tony, please, can we just leave the Death Riders in 2025? I mean, the obvious go-to answer for me and my personal wrestling taste is, can we please leave the excessive blood and overuse, over-reliance on plunder? Let's leave that in 2025. But that is being covered expertly elsewhere in this video. So I'm pulling for the Death Riders to stop being a thing. The group has just been, I don't know, just such a drag on AEW programming for most of the year, and beyond that even. I mean, we do, as of this recording, we do have the decline of Jon Moxley, the loss to Hangman Page, the loss to Darby Allin, those losses to Kyle O'Reilly, the loss to Claudio Castagnoli in the Continental Classic, and this all seems to be leading to Moxley getting kicked out of the group. But if it's me, I mean, I could just do about the entire group in 2026, to be honest. Just break them all up, and I would be absolutely fine with that. I'd happily take, Pac as a top single star in the world title mix. Or Pac and Claudio could just be a really, 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 really impressive tag team. And Marina Shafir is great. Improved so much over the past year or so. But I don't know, it's just every member of the faction just seems to have some stink attached to them by this point in time. It feels as if the group should have just been knocked on the head, months ago. So fingers crossed that happens soon, whether that's a different lineup to the Death Riders, a different name, please, or, a drastic change in direction, or just blow the whole thing up, nuke it, and let everybody go their separate ways, please.
Triple H.
Yes.
Specifically the aspect of Triple H's character that has hastened the chuddening of professional wrestling in 2025, and specifically the chuddening of WWE, because I feel like this is where it's most prominent. Look, the world sucks at the moment for a lot of people. I don't consume news media anymore because I don't like watching a TV show where I'm witnessing displaced peoples being bombed. I don't like hearing about how the economy is dying and you're getting replaced by a freaking robot. I don't like going outside and some twat for some reason has painted a silly little flag that he's probably had sex with at some point on his roundabout so that he can make people who are within his community feel welcome. It's nothing to do with pride. It's to do with making other people feel outcast and unwelcome. And that's exactly what's happening with this stuff at the moment. Look, for years and years and years, you would hear people on what I would describe as the chud side say, keep wrestling apolitical, keep these things out of wrestling. I want my escape. That's exactly where I am, man. I want an escape from real life when I'm watching to wrestling, when I'm listening to music, when I'm watching movies or whatever. If it's something I specifically go out for and seek, that's fine, that's no problem. I listen to a bunch of political music and stuff like that. But I hate feeling sniped by it. I hate seeing certain figures with other certain figures in certain shaped offices. I hate tuning into Monday Night Raw. Yeah, there you go. The square office, the famous one. I hate tuning into Raw and look, in the crowd, oh, it's a guy who made a joke about Puerto Rico and the people who live there. Oh, look, it's another guy who uses the R slur to describe wrestling. I hate this stuff, honestly. The world is getting meaner. The world is getting more dismissive. The world is getting harder and harder for people who do not toe a certain line to feel welcome. And I think that now it is deeply rooted within the DNA of TKO Group, which is, of course, WWE's parent company. It's all over the UFC, which, look, it's extremely. I like mixed martial arts, but it's a sport where men get punched and women get punched in the head for a living. Of course, it's not going to have the most balanced mental outlook or anything like that. But it's also figureheaded by a guy who slapped his wife in public and felt no repercussions. Triple H, Paul Levesque, wants to become the Dana White of WWE. He is well on his way to doing that. And the chudification of his company is a big step in that. I'm frankly fed up with it. I want to feel like this is entertainment. I want an escape. I do not want this subtlety hammer smashing me over the head every other week. Keep Andrew Schultz at home. Keep Tony, whatever his name is, Andy Hinchcliffe's crap brother. Roasts, throw them in the bin. This stuff sucks. Leave it forever.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's something that wrestling needs to get rid of in 2026. And it's funny we're talking about this now because the Continental Classic has just ended, which is when a wrestling company doesn't worry about this. Losing doesn't make you a loser, right? I got on my high horse about this the last year, so please do forgive me for going on about it again. I understand to be a star, you have to win more than you lose. You have to come across like a force. For example, that's how Goldberg got over. He destroyed everybody. But if Cody Rhodes came back to WWE, lost in 2022 or whatever it was, then sure, he wouldn't have been able to become the star that he would, because especially if you're watching it from a suspension of disbelief point of view, you sort of, lean in this guy's direction or this girl's direction because they're doing super good. You're like, well, what an amazing talent. And sure, some people can get over the loser gimmick, but history tells it doesn't really work that way. But WWE and AEW, more so WWE, well, that's probably not true, I take that back. But you'll book matches, and then you realize, well, we don't want this guy to lose, or we don't want that guy to lose, so we'll just do a run-in, we'll do a distraction, we'll do an interference, we'll do a schmoz, which you should keep. It's one of the most wonderful things about wrestling is absolute nonsense like that. But I think there's this idea that if this person loses, well, they're buried. I mean, that's actually a social media reaction too, which probably ties into the problem. But yeah, this idea, well, they lost now, how can we ever do anything with them? Somebody turns into like a ye olde gentleman from the 70s. I just think when you remember that wrestling is meant to be sports, anybody can lose. That's why I bring up the Continental Classic, right? Because Claudio Castagnoli beat John Moxley, and a few days later he's into Mascara Dorada, which the initial reaction could be, well, that was stupid. Now he can't do anything off his win against John Moxley, but that's not true. It's a tournament. When you watch the Premier League or the NFL or whatever the hell it is, there is a league system in place, a point system in place, and sometimes the people at the top of the league smash everybody else, but every now and then someone at the bottom of the leagues is able to get a result against somebody at the top, and that's why people keep watching. That's absolutely why people keep watching football in this country in the Premier League. Who's bottom right now? Wolves, unlikely going to beat anyone, but they could. Wolves could beat Arsenal at some point. Well, that would destroy me, being an Arsenal fan. The idea is that it's never off the table, and you would get media coverage of people like, Arsenal bottled it and all that nonsense. But we've seen bigger upsets in the past, while the FA Cup over here, which is a tournament that pits the lower leagues against the higher leagues, and Grimsby beat Manchester United a few months ago, and that sent everybody off, even though at the time Manchester United weren't very good. But you could do that in wrestling as well. That's its own story. For example, I actually think John Moxley is a great representation of this, because he lost to Darby, he lost to Hangman and Page, and he lost to Claudio, and there's somebody else he lost to, Kyle O'Reilly. And because of that, he started getting more over with the fans, because I think they understood the story that he was trying to tell. He peaked and now he was on the way back down again. It doesn't make him any less of a star. If anything, it's a great way to pivot to being a babyface. You just have to do it in the right way. So, what was the match the other day that I was super into? Was it the Kabuki Warriors? It was a women's tag team match on Raw or SmackDown. And the Kabuki Warriors ran in. That's right. So it must have been Charlotte and Alexa taking on two people. Was it Rhea and Io? I think so. That could be wrong. The point is I was so into it and then the Kabuki Warriors ran in. I was like, no. I really wanted to see what direction WW was going to take this in. Are you going to take these guys and push them? Maybe it's going to be these people. And how do those other people then react to it? How do you react to losing? How do you react to being defeated? I think there's this real fear. And of course you can do it too much, but I'm talking about bringing balance to the force. I think we've gone too far the other way. Well, we can't possibly beat him because how is he ever going to get over again? I don't think that's true. I think that's up to the talent. I think Dominic Mysterio is wonderful at this. He can lose and you give him a microphone and he'll get his heat back within about 2 minutes, so you can do whatever you want with him. And I think wrestling needs to have more faith in guys being able to do that. At the same time, it's not really a big problem. Don't know why I got as passionate about it as I did, but I just think we are leaving stories and creators and angles on the table because we always have to default to, we'll just do a DQ here, we'll just do a run here, we'll just do a count out here. No, you're winning, you're losing, and the next week we're going to do this. Maybe that ties into long-term stories, right? If you know someone's going to lose 3 matches, but then they're going to go on a 37-match winning streak because you planned it out that far, which is what Paul Heyman says that WWE does. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily true. Then you can sort of get into the nitty-gritty with that. But trust people losing, right? And then put it back on the talent. How are you going to get your ass out of this?
The awful thing that I need wrestling to leave in 2025 is something I honestly could have had left in the years before, really, the most recent years, is WarGames / Blood and Guts. Double Cage Chaos. I'm done. I need a break. At the very least a break from this, because there was a time there when it was quite exciting seeing WarGames get brought back into the fold and Blood and Guts in AEW's case, and it felt different, it felt big, it felt brutal at times, like unpredictable as well. It just felt like a lot. There was a lot going on and I was into it. But now it's just been overdone and it's now become an obligation rather than something that's called for. When you've got these two stables that are warring, or this big personal thing that needs paying off, go to WarGames. It's the only way we can solve it. Go to Blood and Guts. We've just got to do it. Now it's just like, all right, what time of the calendar is it? Yeah, oh, it's near November for WWE. That means it's WarGames. And for AEW for a while it was summer, but then this year they moved it back a little bit, so it was a little bit different. But still, it's just felt like it's been there because, all right, have we done it yet this year? Yeah, well, we need to do it at some point. Tick. That's where we're at with it. I think on the AEW side of things, they can actually live up to the potential, I guess, of what the WarGames match can be as a concept, because it is supposed to be brutal. It is supposed to be like war. That is the thing. It's there in the title in WWE's. I know it's all confusing, but you know what I mean. It's there. It's supposed to be like savage and extreme, I guess. And they can do that. They can really take it up those levels. But even there, like, there's only so far you can go with the brutality, let's say that. And in AEW's case, I feel like we have hit a point where people have fell off the cage. We've had people like set on fire by being thrown through tables and bloodied up and hitting the head with chairs. There's not much else to go, he says, hoping that no one else tries to get set on fire next year if it does stick around. But I think sometimes with these kind of concepts, a break is as good as anything. I think it can help get excitement pumped back into the idea of it coming on the horizon, the anticipation for it. Just look at Hell in a Cell as a great example of this. Like, for a while, it was just on the calendar because there's a pay-per-view that said Hell in a Cell, and then maybe you got an extra one at WrestleMania. They were just there, and it got to the point where it was diminished returns. You were like, we know they can't do anything too extreme nowadays because they're trying to protect, obviously, the wrestlers from themselves a lot of the time. But it was just like, big cage, not that bothered. But then they give it a rest for a while, and then you had CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, and they just had to have that match in Hell in a Cell, that blood feud blow-off, and it felt big. It felt like, that has earned this. That has earned Hell in a Cell, this match. They hate each other. It makes sense. I need that with my WarGames now. I need them to just take a while, just take a year, maybe, and just don't touch it, don't do anything with it. And then when you do finally come back to it, and you've got these two stables, or like, I don't know, a babyface and a heel, and they've just formed two teams to have this massive war because that's the only way we can just end the feud and move on to different things, then I'll feel into it and there'll be a reason for it. But just in WWE's case, go back to the traditional Survivor Series for a little bit. I enjoyed that match they had this year. Just do that for a little bit. In AEW's case, you've already got like Anarchy in the arena. You've got a big team war thing there. And that, again, that's starting to feel like a bit of an obligation. Just do that. Just do that maybe for a year, or a big stadium stampede maybe if they're at the Wembley again next year, I think. I'm not sure. Do something like that. Leave the big double cages for a year. Just leave them in 2025, and then we'll see. We'll reassess in 2027, and we'll see if people are into it again.
Murray, I'm sick of plunder, mate. I can't cope anymore with everybody busting each other open with the same bin lids, steel chairs, kendo sticks, barbed wire. Pick the weapon, and I'm biased against it. This is not a tribal thing. This is not an anti-John Moxley thing any more than it's an anti-kendo stick thing, because both companies, all two of them, WWE and AEW, have, in my opinion, the same problem, but just it's a different stripe of it. We have, thankfully, moved away from excessive ladder matches, but it's only because we've moved into excessive plunder. Somehow the ladder match has been baby-faced because there's so many of these weapons matches. Gone are the days where a weapons match on a pay-per-view can be seen as the grand payoff. We are recording this at the tail end of 2025, and gone are the days where WarGames means a goddamn thing anymore, because nothing feels as violent as it should. Even Blood and Guts, the match that was named as a bit of a joke at Vince McMahon's expense when he dared to suggest that AEW might offer violence and danger and blood and guts and things of that nature, has now itself been diluted, even when wrestlers like Sky Blue are bleeding for their art in positions that they're not always really allowed on television. The moment is lost. The magic is lost. This happens in wrestling. It simply cannot help itself as a medium. It's never had the subtlety and nuance to spot something that works and then use it judiciously. And I say this knowing that if somehow my prayers are answered and plunder is left in 2020, the excessive use of plunder is left in 2025, I know for a fact a new thing will take up the mantle in 2026. I'm too old and long in the tooth to realise that if ladders have gone away and plunder goes away, we'll suddenly get back to the era where every company needs several briefcases. Remember that for a little bit. There is just no way that wrestling cannot be wrestling, but weapons in particular are the things I have just lost all feeling for. I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Bret the Hitman Hart didn't even like chops because they weren't a work. What is happening where wrestlers are hurting themselves and I'm less interested than I should be? That's the opposite of the work. I was in person for the Forbidden Door 5-on-5 cage main event where it was just weapons, cages, whatever. Yes, there was only one ring, but that was effectively delivering a blood and guts match / WarGames match before there was 4 of them. Jesus! In the same month. In 2025.
Same week almost?
Same week. Darby Allin's head was in a fish tank. What are we doing? It's time to take a proper big picture view on this. As bookers, Triple H, Tony Khan, set yourself targets to do maybe at a push, and I mean at an absolute maximum, 1 a month. It's still too much, but 1 a month has got to pull us back from basically what we now see as a weekly churn. I hate to turn into one of them old fossils that everybody does in wrestling, but somehow a kendo stick's as normal as a lockup in mainstream TV wrestling, and I'm sick of it.
I really cannot stand it when professional wrestlers, this is an AEW problem, but it happens in WWE, it happens in NXT more so than the main roster, but this idea of the wrestler embodying who can best embody the spirit of the brand. AEW, I understand why this has become more of a thing in pro wrestling in this sort of tribalism era, if you want to call it anything, between AEW and WWE. Obviously, the respective fan bases love the idea of their companies being number one, and to an extent that they can't accept that one of the other promotions, or the other promotion, there might as well be 2 at this point, because that's how dominant this culture is right now, might be able to do something good or competent or exciting or whatever. It just can't be because of the initials. I get it. I can understand preference. Obviously, I lean towards AEW more than WWE, but this idea of we're the best, everything else sucks. It's infected and polluted literally everything, I think, the way we talk about pro wrestling, and it's even corrupted AEW storytelling model. Now, I know this has existed from day one in AEW, where the idea, but I don't think they were quite as broad or explicit with it, but the general idea with the genuinely excellent feud between Cody and Chris Jericho early was that Cody Rhodes was the AEW representative, and he kept talking about, we don't have invisible walls here in AEW, and he made a point of cutting those promos down the lens in a way that was sort of not allowed in WWE at the time, and Cody Rhodes made this big play of, I'm the face of this revolution, and I'm going to do the non-WWE things on TV, and it's going to be refreshing, and da-da-da. Chris Jericho was the interloper. He was the Clown World Champion, who sports entertainment, stylings, where he would do the parody video of Cody Rhodes were not welcome. Funny, but the idea was when he rid of that champion, we need someone better to represent the brand a bit. But they also made it a personal issue. Like, they broke Cody's brother's arm, they got loads of heat angles. It wasn't the dominant thread. And I think even though it's always existed in AEW, I think post Brawl Out, they, being AEW, have made very cynical and quite soulless and vapid storylines that are designed to appease their base of, let's get behind AEW. We saw it with the Young Bucks. Let's change the world and have Team AEW fight the New Elite in matches across 2024. And this all seemed to spin from showing the CM Punk footage at Wembley. And then that didn't work. And then the Death Riders with Jon Moxley. As great as that is at time of recording, like, the whole premise of it, I didn't like at all. Like, being reminded when you're trying to escape into a certain world. Oh, this world's boring and broken, and a lot of the wrestlers that you like or quite liked once upon a time are now stagnant. Private Party and Daniel Garcia were part of this early. And the problem is, if Private Party don't turn into a generational tag team, which is really quite difficult to do, you're going to think less of them. Oh, Jon Moxley was right, you know? And ultimately, I just find it a little bit lame. It feels like Tony Khan has spent the last 2 years running a glorified stand-up for AEW campaign, and as much as sometimes the ends justify the means with this sort of thing, like the Hangman Page post-match celebration at All In Texas was wonderful, but genuinely I got more out of that because it felt like a true moment of atonement for Hangman Page, the individual, the character, the wrestler portraying him. You can't tell me that he didn't have flashes of the CM Punk mess going through his head as he opened the briefcase, maybe thinking as he looks on in front of 25,000 people, all of this could have gone away. I'm so glad I've played a key role in it coming back, sort of thing. So I enjoyed that more on the subtext level than I have saved AEW from Jon Moxley, AEW this. Like Darby Allin, like, I like him a little bit less as a pro wrestler, simply because he keeps going on and on about how much he loves AEW and AEW this and AEW that. And I think I'm 40 years old now. I'm becoming that pro wrestling fan. Everyone does it where it's like, oh, everything new is crap automatically because I'm old. And that's not the case. I understand I'm probably out of touch. And again, like, the base seems to really enjoy rallying behind the brand. But I just like pro wrestling more when the initials were simply a backdrop for championship matches and grudge feuds. And I want to, like, why do I want to hate this heel? Why do I want to love this babyface? And when they keep going on and on about the brand, I just feel at a remove from pro wrestling as it does this.